Here he is.
Finally, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah! I want to stab some monsters already! Well, actually, I have an announcement.
Holy crap, he can talk.
Hold on a second. Does he have speaking written on his character sheet?
I'm not going to be a warlock anymore. I'm gonna roll up a new character and I'm gonna be a druid. Yeah.
Now, you do realize that druids don't wear black, don't you?
Yeah! Druids wear green! That's a good point. Alright. How's this? That's pretty good, but you're still missing a little something, I think. Okay. How about this?
Hey now, that's my personal
It's
logo.
good, right? Yeah.
You can't use that.
Well, sure he can. And he won't be needing this anymore either.
That's it. You're all a bunch of thieves. I quit.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. Today in the Lair, we'll be talking about how to prepare a D&D game. But before we jump in, I just want to let all my patrons and members know that I'm doing another one-shot giveaway where 4 of you will get to play a session of D&D with me as your Dungeon Master. There's a link down in the description where you can sign up. And if you're not currently a patron or member but want to get in on the giveaway and receive lots of other cool perks while you're at it, you can become one by visiting my Patreon page, link below, or by clicking that shiny join button down below this video. I'll leave the giveaway open for a couple weeks to give folks a chance to sign up. Anyway, on to how to prepare a D&D game. What I'm going to do is discuss 10 game elements that are important to prepare before your game starts. These are the things that are going to allow you to roll into your game session, ready to run an awesome game for your players, and not fall on your face like a noob. Not that falling on your face like a noob is bad or anything. I mean, it's not like your players are going to mock you ruthlessly until you run home crying or anything. Your players will never remind you of the time you forgot to give your big bad a name and just called him Tim. Let's just move on, shall we? Okay. I'd like to quickly dispel the notion that preparing for your game equates to railroading your players. Railroading is when there's only one solution to a problem, and no matter what else your players try, it fails. And the players are ultimately driven to do the one thing the Dungeon Master decided was the correct solution. As long as you're giving your players the ability to solve adventures their own way, you're not railroading. You're just preparing for your game so you don't look like a moron who doesn't know what they're doing. And for what it's worth, I've been that moron plenty of times, and now I'm just trying to spare you that experience. Here is the golden rule of game preparation. Prepare only what you don't want to have to improvise at the game table. If you can improvise it, consider not prepping it at all. You should know yourself. You should know what you are good at and what you are bad at. Prepare the things you suck at and that are more difficult to come up with on the fly. Spend your time getting that stuff figured out and squared away. The stuff that comes easy to you, you can just pull that out and plop it down with zero prep. Don't worry about that crap. And now I'm going to give you my list of the things I find most important to prepare before a game session. Your list may be different, but I think these are all important considerations at the very least. This is in rough list of priority too, meaning that if I'm short on time, I might do the ones listed first and then forego with the rest. Oh, and if you have questions about this topic or anything else Dungeon Master or D&D related, I have live streams here on YouTube every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern US time. The first couple hours, all I do is answer questions, so swing on by. Number 1, maps. Yeah, I am not going to improvise a map on the fly. No stinking way. I need to have a map of the dungeon to run an adventure. Unless, of course, I want my dungeon to be a lame series of unimaginative rooms and corridors. That's a hard word. I should probably fire my scriptwriter. I write my own scripts. I'm fired. Oh, and here's a quick tip for busy DMs too. Steal stuff from the internet. If you need a map in a pinch, you are but a Google search away from what you need. In fact, most of my homebrew dungeon maps start out with me doing searches online for inspiration. Don't reinvent the wheel. Steal other people's wheels.
Now that's a message I can support.
Number 2, encounters. So I think it naturally follows that if I need a map of the dungeon, I need to know what's in the dungeon. Specifically, I want to have all my encounters designed with the challenge rating calculated for the level of my players' characters. That's not really something I want to throw together. Now, if you want to learn more about D&D encounter building, check out my encounter building playlist by clicking this card right here. Number 3, the adventure's situation. This is what most people would probably call the storyline of the adventure, but the term storyline is rather misleading. Remember, as a dungeon master, you are not creating the story. You are creating a situation that sets up an adventure, and then how your players react to that situation determines the complete story. Anyway, personal pet peeve aside, you probably want to know what the heck the adventure is even about before your game session begins. In fact, I don't know why this is number 3 on my list. It probably should be number 1. At any rate, yeah, make sure you figure this out.
Hey, Mr. Dungeon Master, sir, could you remind me why we even came to this dungeon?
Was it to squeeze fluffy animals?
Well, why do you want to have come to this dungeon?
Holy crap! What an idiot!
Number 4, main NPCs. This one is pretty straightforward. Know who the main NPCs are the players will come across in the adventure. Give them names, preferably ones you can pronounce, a basic physical description, and the role they will play in the adventure. If they are a villain, you also want to know what motivates them and their methods. That is, how do they go about being villainous? Do they have minions? Are they master manipulators? Knowing this basic information about a bad guy will help you roleplay them and react to your players' actions during the adventure. Number 5, plot hooks. All of your preparation for a game is for naught if your players ignore the adventure and go off and do something different. Now, ideally, you'll already know your players want to do a thing before you prepare for it, and you'll know that because you'll ask them before you go off and prepare a thing. But getting them to commit to an adventure in the first place will require a plot hook. A plot hook is the thing that entices your players to go on the adventure. Now, there are 2 important elements to the plot hook. First, you need to clearly present the problem to your players. And second, you need to provide your players with motivation for resolving the problem. For instance, the mayor's daughter has been kidnapped and the town is willing to reward her rescuers with 10 Vorpal clubs of ultimate destruction. Number 6, loot. I feel like doling out treasure and rewards is a pretty important consideration in the game, and it's something I like to give a little thought to. Now, I'm on record as saying I usually just roll on random treasure tables, but that doesn't mean I don't tweak the results and make sure the loot, especially magic items, are a good fit for my game. And here's a pro tip for dungeon masters with players whose memories resemble mashed potatoes. Make handouts for your magic items that list the game mechanics for handy reference. This does 2 things. First, it reminds your players that they even have the magic item, because no player ever has suddenly found a magic item written on their sheet that they had forgot they even had. Second, it explains how the magic item works, because no dungeon master ever has explained how a magic item works only to have a player ask how it works 2 game sessions later. Number 7, traps. I don't usually put lots of traps in my games, but when I do have them, I want them to be cool and memorable. That means I need to put some thought into them, and that means I'm not just going to wing them during a game. And if you want to watch some videos with tips on building awesome traps for your D&D game, check out my trap building playlist in the card right here. That was a nice little plug. You like how I'm slipping all these little card plugs in to watch more videos? I'm clever like that. That's so lame. I'll probably leave that in. Number 8, puzzles. Okay, I suck at puzzles. I hate puzzles. I don't like making them. They suck. However, many of my players don't feel the same way, so I do try to include them in my games from time to time. And when I do, that means I need to prepare them ahead of time and usually steal ideas for them off the internet. Number 9, custom creatures. You know, I'm pretty good at making quick changes to creatures on the fly during the game, usually to make them even nastier. But when I'm making a true homebrew creature, I'm going to do that crap before the game. Number 10, Handouts. So if you find a way to create handouts on the fly during a game session, one that doesn't involve hastily scribbling something on a scrap of paper, you let me know. In the meantime, you gotta do that stuff before the game. Especially if you do your handouts like I do mine. I like to use script-like fonts on special parchment paper, and then I use a small pewter bracelet charm to make impressions in hot wax on the paper. This makes it look like a real-life letter sealed with wax. I have a video about creating player handouts in this card right up here, and I'll put a link to the list of supplies I use down in the description. Look at that, linking more stuff and plugging more videos for you to go watch. Woo, that's 3 in this video so far. I'm on a roll. And if you'd like to see examples of the adventures I create that show many of these things in action, I have lots of free D&D adventures available over on my site, thedmlair.com. Link in the description.
Let me know what you find to be the most important thing to prepare before a game session, and what things you're good at and can improvise easily. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to use a D&D faction favor system, but until then, click right here to learn how to create a D&D adventure.